Okay, fertilization is another component of Animalia that we need to discuss. Now, reproduction occurs due to fertilization. So, in order to perpetuate the species, obviously, we're going to have to reproduce. Fertilization occurs when the sperm penetrates the egg, and we have talked about that before. So, when the sperm and the egg meet, each one, sperm and egg, are haploid. They're carrying half of the information. And when they meet, we have a diploid structure, which is called a zygote. Now, sometimes we have internal fertilization. Certainly, if we're thinking about us or our dogs or our cats, rabbits, mice, whatever, we have internal fertilization where the egg and the sperm actually meet internally or within the body. But sometimes animals undergo what is called external fertilization. And external fertilization occurs a lot in aquatic species where you may have fish that lay their eggs and then the male swims over them and deposits sperm. So there's going to be a lot of differences in the type of fertilization in the animal kingdom. Now, asexually, this means that a single parent produces the offspring. Of course, this is the way bacteria through binary fission. Budding. Budding is something that yeast did. So as we go through, there's a lot of types of asexual. Budding, of course, is where the parent forms a protrusion, it falls off, and then you have a new organism. Fragmentation, a lot of corals reproduce this way, where the whole coral just fragments, just breaks apart into a whole lot of pieces, and each one of those pieces becomes a new animal. Regeneration, we're going to talk about regeneration of parts, certainly when we get to arthropods where they can lose an appendage, such as like fighting. It's much easier for them to lose one of their pinchers. They're called chelipeds, but it's a lot easier for them to lose one or a leg and get away from a predator, and they can regenerate one back. Also, there's a very unique type of asexual reproduction called parthenogenesis. This is where reproduction occurs when a female egg develops into a new into a new individual without fertilization. Now, this happens in animals. A lot of plants do this, but the animals that do this include our nematodes. Nematodes are worms. There are parasitic worms such as like whipworm and hookworm and those kinds of things. Water fleas, some scorpions undergo parthenogenesis, and some bees do. So we will talk, as we get to each one of these groups, we will talk about different kinds of fertilization. Now, early development in the zygote has to undergo mitosis and then a lot of new divisions to form new cells. Probably you have never thought about it, but when the egg and the sperm meet, and then you have this zygote that starts undergoing all of these mitotic divisions, there are going to be stages that this ball of cells goes through before it can become a person. So you probably have never thought about it, but how, from that ball of cells, how does a cell know it's supposed to be in your stomach? How does a cell know it's supposed to be a nerve cell? How does a cell, there's not like there's a little man in there saying, oh, okay, well, you're a muscle cell, you go over there. There's not that kind of direction. So there is stages that this zygote is going to go through. The study of this is called embryology. When you take embryology in college, you learn all of the stages that a fertilized egg goes through before it becomes an embryo. So we're going to go through a few stages. I'm going to show you how this develops. And it starts with this, and there's a picture up here in a minute. It'll help in just a minute. But at first, we have this ball of cells that has fluid in the center of it, and it's called a blastula. So that's our very first stage. The blastula is going to continue to undergo cell division until a little part of it pinches inward, a lot like if you had a rubber ball and you poked one side of it. And so where your finger went in, now there's going to be an indention, and that structure is called a gastrula. All right, so look at this on the left. We have our sperm, teeny tiny, in our great big egg. And now we have got the zygote. This is a zygote. And it's going to start dividing and dividing. And it's going to be 2 cells and then 4. And then it's going to get to this 16 cell stage. And then right after that, it forms the blastula. So here is your hollow fluid-filled center. And these are all the cells on the outside. Now from here, after a few more divisions, it pinches inward. These cells that are pinching inward here are going to eventually become the gut. So cells that are on the outside are going to become like brain and nervous tissue. So there is developmental stages in which we go through in order to form our organs. So from the sperm and egg, after the 16 cell stage, we have a blastula with fluid in the center. And you can see all those are teeny tiny cells, and these are cells on the outside. Each one of those little dark circles is a nuclei, and these are all cells. Then when it goes to the gastrula, if you have a hard time thinking of this, think B before G, blastula before gastrula. So gastrula occurs when one side of it pinches inward, and it's going to stay. Now there's still fluid in here, but this you can see is a different color because this is to indicate what eventually will become the structures that are in the middle of our bodies, such as our gut, our reproductive system, muscles. Now, we end up with tissue development. We know that when you have a collection of cells, it's going to form tissue. And there's 3 layers of tissue. Not all animals have all 3 layers. We certainly do, but they all don't. Now, starting with endoderm. This is your innermost layer of cells in the gastrula, the part that I showed you that's pinching in. In the endoderm is going to form the gut and the lining of the gut. So this is going to be the inner portion of our bodies. Ectoderm is going to be the outermost layer, and it is going to form the brain and our nerves. And actually, ectoderm forms first, so it's kind of backwards in that when we first find out that we're pregnant, this ectoderm, the brain and all the spinal nerves have already started forming. And then between the two, you're going to get this middle layer called the mesoderm. This is between the endoderm and the ectoderm, and the mesoderm will give rise to your reproductive system, to your muscular system, to your skeletal, all of the other structure, the urinary tract, all of the other structures that are in the middle of our bodies. So with the 3, ectoderm, just think outer. Ecto means out, derm means skin. So our outer is going to be our skin, our brain, and our nerves. Endoderm, which means inside skin, is going to be our very inner core, which is going to be the gut and the lining of the gut. And then mesoderm is going to be all the skin that forms in the middle, which eventually is going to be reproductive, muscular, skeletal, urinary, everything that we have, your heart, circulatory system, all of that comes out of mesoderm.